about a heaven in Alberta, where they've got all hell for abasements. Yeah, I lost my way, but I hear tell about a heaven in Alberta, where they've got all hell for abasements.
All right. Hi, everyone. Frankie here, New West Reset. Hello. Welcome back. And thanks for joining me here. Thanks for joining me for another live. It's Friday, kicking off the weekend with yours truly here for New West Reset Live. So thank you. Episode 51 on this Friday, February the 2nd. It's February already. Man, a little bit of a late start, starting 2 hours later this evening. A fella had to work until 6 p.m., so I wasn't able to start my usual 5 p.m. time. So we're starting at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. A little late, so apologies for that. If it's late in the day or super early in the morning for you and you're joining me, first of all, thank you. Appreciate it. Secondly, say hello in the box here. Jump into the chat, say hello. So where are we at here? Well, it's episode 51, as mentioned. Going to be kind of looking at weird stuff. It's going to be looking at some weird stuff today. Some Vulcans, some red rocks, Orion. Very strange. But it pertains to Alberta here, which is where I'm broadcasting from. As always, coming to you live from Calgary, Alberta, up in Canada land. And Calgary's in southwestern Alberta. We're going to be looking southeast of that. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. How you doing? How's she going out there, eh? Hopefully everybody's doing well and ready for the weekend. Thanks again. If you're kicking off your weekend here with yours truly, appreciate it as per usual. Hello to everybody over on the fighting platform. Rumble got it working now pretty steadily. So thanks and howdy to everybody on Rumble for joining. Links below, by the way, for Rumble, BitChute, MeWe, and a guy's email. If you want to get a hold of me and say, hey, Frankie, maybe you should check out Fredericton. Or, hey, Frankie, what about that there moose jaw in Saskatchewan? Or you want to send me some pictures of some crazy old world stuff? Or, by all means, links in the description down there. So where are we at? Well, as mentioned, it's just a frog hairs past 7 p.m. local time, mountain time here on Friday, February the 2nd, and it's still pretty nice. It's 5 degrees Celsius-ish, give or take. It's around low 40s Fahrenheit. Not bad. Not bad. Especially after, 2 weeks ago? Minus 50. I'm not joking now. Now, fellas sometimes will exaggerate for comedic effect, but I'm not joking this time. It was minus 50 for like 2 or 3 days in a row. So, I mean, plus 5 is like, I don't know. A guy was going to be running around outside with his shorts and his flip flops. No, nope, not going to do that until July. Anyway, let's see who we got here. Terry's here. Howdy, Terry. Happy Groundhog Day Friday. Terry thought that yesterday was Friday. It's all right. We've all been there. We've all been there. Hi, Kathy. Kathy's in the box. Welcome. My pal Bill, William Powell's. Howdy. There he is, Cousin Vinny. Good to see you, my friend. How's Mr. Fluffy doing, by the way? There's a problem with one of the kitty cats in the Vincent household. Where is it? There it is. Phil says he saw geese flying north today. I've been hearing geese, the from up in the skies as they're coming in. Specifically the Canada geese there, of course, there, eh? What do they call it? What do you guys call that in the States? Americans call Canada geese murder turkeys or something like that, or I don't know, or I can't remember what it's some hilarious name. Anyway, because they're very aggressive, especially when they got the little baby geese, the little goslings. Not Ryan Gosling, who's also Canadian, but I'm not talking about that Canada goose. I'm talking about the Canada geese flying. I've been seeing them for about 2 weeks coming in. Basically, a day or two after that cold snap that we had with the minus 50, basically after that broke and it started to get back to normal temperatures. In fact, more on the warm side of normal temperatures. I could hear them flying. I look up, there they are. There they are. So yeah, I'm not surprised that you saw some geese. Red Rocks and Vulcans in one show. Yeah, and Orion too. You're getting a threefer, but they all tie together. You know how it goes. Maggots in the box. Howdy, my friend. Was that hot yesterday? You couldn't go outside. Really? Well, yeah, because you're having your summer right now, so it's hotter than Satan's taint right down there right now. We actually broke records 2 days in a row for being above zero Celsius, freezing. The other day we went to 14 degrees Celsius or something, I think it was, which is like 60 Fahrenheit. I don't know. It's crazy. Oh, good. Very good. Yes, yay for healthy kitties. We don't like it when our furry friends are ill. At least I don't. And the poor buggers, dog, cat, whatever the case may be, they can't really communicate properly what's wrong with them, right? If it's a child and they, my tush hurts, or I got a stomach ache, or, you could see they got a snotty nose or whatever, right? Take their temperature. Oh, got a fever, whatever the case may be. But a dog, it's just going to maybe kind of sleep a lot and be lazy and kind of whine. And a cat will just disappear. And you're like, the cat hasn't eaten in a long time. That's highly unusual. You're looking under the couch for Mr. Fluffy, and behind the bed, and all its hiding spots. They get lethargic. And yeah, it's rough, Oh, yeah, they were Canadian geese too there, eh, bud? Hidden at plain sight. Yes, 3 a.m. Wow, thank you very much for shooting in, joining me, my friend Marit. Good to see you. Go and check out Marit's channel, by the way. Will you? Come on, if you haven't already. Very nice. Excellent old world photographs, set to lovely music. Mostly, but not exclusively, Dutch, the Netherlands. I must take I don't know. Must take her forever to find those old pictures. Anyways, I'm going to post the link in the box for Reed's channel. Hidden in plain sight. Boop. There it is. Jabberoo Joe. Yeah, right. Yeah. You know, the kids are always falling, right? They fall down. I hurt my bum. Funny story that my mother tells to this day about when I was, I think, three or four. We were, my little sister wasn't even born yet. My brother wasn't even thought of yet. But anyway, we were at the supermarket, grocery store, whatever you want to call it. And I used to like to ride on the front of the shopping cart or the shopping trolley, whatever you want to call it, right? You put your articles in the pushable basket on wheels, if you will. I used to like to hang off the front of it like a little daredevil, either with your feet on the bottom portion, holding on to the top of the basket portion, and you're basically going backwards as the parent is pushing. So, long story short, they were doing something in the store where they were doing handing out samples or whatever, and they had an extension cord running across the floor, and they had taped it down with duct tape. And I think my dad was pushing the trolley shopping cart, and the front wheels hit that taped down extension cord, and the trolley stopped. But I didn't. Momentum, and I lost my grip, and I went flying off the front of that shopping trolley and landed right on my tuchus. And I got up and I started screaming and crying. And I was hollering that I hurt my bum. My parents were mortified because I was screaming at the top of my lungs. So, there you go. It was a simpler time. It was the 1970s. It was like 1973. People got embarrassed over silly stuff back then. Now people don't care if their kids act out. Trust me, I know. Because ironically, now I work at a supermarket. So, what if that experience had anything to do? Probably not. Anyway, welcome. Thanks for shooting in. Howie's here. Howdy, Howie. Welcome. So yeah, we by the way, amongst the links is also my New West Reset location map. I tried to get to it last Friday. And what happened was I was expecting a delivery at the door, which came just as I was about to share this thing that cousin Vinny in the chat there worked so hard on. Anybody can access this from the link. And Vincent has put every place that a guy here in the city of Calgary and a few outlying areas has covered boots on the ground videos. So you just got to click on the icon and the shows up with the thumbnail, the address, a little blurb, and then the link. And you hit that link and it takes you straight to the YouTube video. So I'm not expecting any deliveries tonight. So there you go. I was able to share that. Interrupted last Friday. Sorry about that. Yeah, that's right. Old World Exploration upstaged. Yeah. Yeah. I got a copy of. He sent me a copy actually as a gift of his volume 2 of his book. Another 101 old world buildings that have been destroyed. And anyways, yeah. So there you go. Vince worked really hard on it. Very time consuming. So yeah, you click on that link and it takes you right to it, and then from there you can have a look around and see where a guy's been walking around, snooping around, sticking his nose in other people's business. Yeah, sure. Why not? Why not have a pub crawl map? And then you can just put it on an app on your phone too. That way, if you get lost or you lose track of where's there, was I at this pub or it's right? Let's see. Let's look on the bleep beep boop thing and see what's in the goggle machine. And then you could see where you are, where you've been at, and where you got to go. You click on one of the things instead of taking you to a location like on my location map. You click on it and it takes you to a menu that shows you the drink specials, Well, they got half price pints over here until 8 o'clock. That's pretty good. I'm gonna check that out. Anyway, enough screwing around. Let's get the show on the road. So hopefully everybody's doing well, ready for your weekend. What we're looking at here for the show is what we're going to do is we're going to go down into the south. You see, the guy's going to take you down into the south. I say, I'm taking you down south. There is what I say now. You hear me now, boy? I'm going to take you way down south there, but not to the land of Dixie and Savannah, Georgia, or anything. No, just in southern Alberta, further south than I am. And I think what kicked this whole thing off was this place called Red Rock Coulee. You'll see how it's spelled. It's a weird word. I think it's a Canadian word. I think it's either a bastardized version of a Native Indian word, an Indigenous First Nations word, or it's a bastardization of a French word. Anyway, Red Rock Coulee kicked this whole thing off for me. Get out of there with that. All right. Now, we've touched on this slightly before, and if you're familiar with Bernie's channel, Crypto Alchemist, he's actually gone down here and done some boots on the ground. But this kicked this whole thing off, and there's a town called Vulcan nearby, and there's a town called Orion nearby. So I figured we'd look at all three tonight, just for the heck of it. Fuck, that's right. I say he's a bright boy, but anyway, I'm a chicken hawk. So Red Rock Coulee is a provincial natural area in southeastern Alberta, Canada. 54 clicks or 30 miles southwest of the city of Medicine Hat. How's that for a handle for a city? Where do you live? Medicine Hat. Oh, I'm from Moose Jaw. Yeah, you guys must be Canadian, eh? 26 clicks or 20 miles south of the hamlet of Seven Persons. It's a weird name also. On Alberta Highway 887. The main feature of this natural landscape is the large spherical reddish boulders. Concretions, apparently, is what they're called. That's science. That's science there, people. Some of which measure 2.5 meters or just over 8 feet in diameter. They're scattered across the Badlands and coulees and can be seen along the hiking trails as well as from the viewpoint on Highway 887. So a coulee is defined, it's a term applied rather loosely to different landforms, all of which refer to a kind of valley or drainage zone. Word coulee comes from the Canadian French couler. There you go. Meaning to flow. So that's what a coulee looks like. Basically a dry riverbed or a very shallow valley, a deep ditch. It doesn't have to be very, very deep, 5 to 6 feet, down to maybe 20 feet. Anyway. So these large spherical concretions at Red Rocks Coulee are hosted in the late Cretaceous Bear Paw Formation, which makes up the bedrock in the area. The formation lies close to the surface under a thin layer of soil and has been sculpted by erosion. Oh, of course, erosion. Exposing the concretions and creating areas of badlands and hoodoos. Hoodoos are those, rock with another rock balancing on top of it. Got tons of those in southern Alberta. The dark gray shale, the beds of greenish and gray sandstone and siltstone, pale gray, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Anyways, you get the idea. It's these things right here in Alberta. So, as mentioned, Bernie has done some boots on the ground there. And I just found it super fascinating because I was like, wait, what? So it's just outside of this little town called Orion. And by the way, links, once again, in the box for everything on the Wikipedia as well here. Let's see what it says about Orion, Alberta, this little town. Whoa, hey, settle down now, fella. Orion is a hamlet in Alberta, Canada. Well, thanks, eh? Within the county of 40 Mile number 8. That's got a lovely ring to it, eh? That name? 40 Mile number 8. The hamlet is located approximately 78 clicks or almost 50 miles south of Medicine Hat along Highway 61. Orion recorded a population of 11 people, not even a dozen, in the 1991 census, conducted by Stats Canada. Services. The hamlet has a grocery store, a post office, a gas and hardware store, a newly built church, and many remaining facades of past businesses. As of 2020, there's no longer a gas station or hardware store. Oh, okay. So much for that. I bet you the grocery store and post office were in the same building, and the gas station and hardware store were probably the same building. So a town of 11 people has this weird red rock coulee formation just outside of, it's just a couple of miles away. Just a couple of miles away. You'd think this would be a bustling little tourist town. What's going on here? I got a ride from Whitehorse to Medicine Hat back in my hitchhiking days. Oh, so you've been down to the Hat, eh? Yeah, that's right. That's what it reminded me of right away. Giant jars, right? And we've seen that before. Where is that? In Asia or something? And in the Middle East? Yeah, I think he was going to try to go back this summer. I think I'm going to try to go with him. If I can get time off at the same time as he wants to go out there, and depending how long he's going to go out there for. But a guy will just throw his, tent in his pack, and because that's how I go camping, anyways. A guy's not afraid to rough it, eh? So, and there's campsites in and around there. Yeah, it was crazy, right? Mr. Beast fan, howdy. Howdy. Good to see you. Thanks for shooting in. Anyway. So that's this crazy little town of Orion and this red rock coulee. So what I did was a guy just scoured the interwebs on the Goggle images there just to find a couple of really nice shots of those red rocks that we'll have a look at in a second. But also wanted to look at Orion just in terms of what Wikipedia says about, Orion in terms of, mythology, right? Because I was like, why is this little town of 12 people, this little dead prairie ghost town, why is it called Orion? It's so strange, right? So Greek mythology, Orion was a giant huntsman whom Zeus, or perhaps Artemis, placed among the stars as the constellation of Orion. Ancient sources told several different stories about Orion. There are two major versions of his birth and several versions of his death. The most important recorded episodes are his birth in Boetie, I don't know how to say that, his visit to Chios, where he met Merope, and R-worded her. He struggle cuddled her. Being blinded by her father, the recovery of her sight at Lemnos, his hunting with Artemis on Crete, his death by the bow of Artemis, or the sting of a giant scorpion, which became Scorpius, the zodiac Scorpio, I would imagine, and his elevation to the heavens. Most ancient sources omit some of these episodes, and several tell only one. These various incidents may originally have been independent, unrelated stories, and it's impossible to tell whether the omissions are simple brevity or represent a real disagreement. Yeah, okay. So basically, in Greek literature, he first appears as great hunter in Homer's epic, The Odyssey, where Odysseus sees his shade in the underworld. The bare bones of Orion's story are told by the Hellenistic and Roman collectors of myths. There's no extant literary versions of his adventures comparable, for example, to that of Jason, Jason the Argonauts and all that. Okay. So, he's basically was a giant and he was a hunter. So I'm like, okay, what does that have to do with this little town? Like, why did, because it didn't say anything in the Wikipedia about Orion in terms of why they named it Orion, like who named it Orion and why, who founded it. Like, you saw the Wikipedia. I'll throw it back up here again real quick. Not throw it up, like, but put it on the screen. But I mean, this is the extent of the article. There's nothing. I mean, sure, a guy, I suppose, could have dug a little deeper, but I mean, isn't that what this Wikipedia thing's supposed to be for? I mean, that's what the normies use it for. So if some normie wanted to know, well, same thing as me. Maybe they're heading out to see the Red Rocks, and they're like, why did they name this town Orion? Does it line up with the belt, like the pyramids? No, not at all. So what is it? I couldn't tell you. No idea. This doesn't say Bubkis. And it's almost like they purposely don't connect the area of Red Rocks Coulee with Orion, even though Orion is like super close. They say, oh, Medicine Hat. It's about the same distance from Orion as it is from Medicine Hat. So I'm just curious as to why this little town was named Orion, who named it and why, when it was founded, why it was founded. I would assume that it's a little agricultural hamlet, right? There was farms out there. Maybe it sprang up because of these big red rocks and people were coming out to see them. So somebody opened a hotel or something there and tried to bring some tourists in. I don't know. It's just very, very unusual to a guy. Anyways, let's have a look at some pictures here of these red rocks in the Red Rock Coulee. And again, this is in actually, you know what? I'm sorry. I don't mean to be stringing you along here, but I want to let's look at Vulcan first, actually, because my photographs are all in one file. It'll just be easier for me because I'm lazy. Is really what it works out to. What's this? Bill says he's looking for Bigfoot. What are your thoughts there, Frankie? Bernie's going to be going down into the Badlands and Medicine Hat-ish, Red Rock Coulee area to look for Bigfoot? Huh, it's an unusual place to look for Bigfoot. Or unless that's a separate trip and you were just kind of like, oh, speaking of Bernie, he's going to be looking for Bigfoot. Because I'd go to the mountain parks. I mean, the Rocky Mountains are not even an hour drive west of the city here of Calgary, which is where Bernie lives. Bernie and I live in the same city. We live about, 20 minutes from each other. But yeah, I would head into Banff National Park, but I would head into some of the slightly less tread and explored areas. You don't want to go out in the middle of nowheres because if you get yourself in trouble, you twist your ankle or something, then your buddy's got to help drag you out of there, and that's no fun. And you could still get into big trouble. The weather can change like that in the mountains, right? The wind shifts, and it's July, and all of a sudden snow. Great, thanks. And if you ask what are my thoughts on Bigfoot, I think it's possible that there's a large hominid of some sort, whether it be an ape or I don't know, some kind of great ape, maybe. I've never seen one. I'm said earlier, I'm 54. I've been out in the woods by myself, like fishing since I was like 10 or 11. For a couple hours, go down to the creek. Been hunting since I was about 12. Hiking and camping on my own since I was 16. And I've never even heard what are described as Bigfoot or Sasquatch hoots. But let me tell you something. The Indigenous First Nations Native Canadian Indians, just like in the United States, the American Indians have many, not only stories in their culture about Sasquatch. I mean, that's where the name comes from, for crying out loud. Bigfoot, Sasquatch, they're interchangeable. It's the same thing, supposedly. Not only do they have stories about Sasquatch, but there are some of the West Coast Indigenous First Nations peoples here in British Columbia, the ones that carved the totem poles, have Sasquatch carved on totem poles alongside quote unquote real animals, bears, hawks, whales, whatever, frogs, whatever they would carve, they want to carve on there, man. So they view Sasquatch as being just as real as a wolf or a bear or a whale or a fish. So I'm down with the possibility that there is some kind of large ape-like hominid that's in some large areas where they're very either underpopulated or very rural or have quick access to unpopulated rural areas, right? Swamps, mountains. I mean, here in Canada land, there's vast swaths of the country here that nobody lives. Nobody. There are places in Canadian land where human feet have never tread. Now talk about your boots on the ground. So who's to say, right? And then if you think, oh, there's too much cold snow up in Canadian land for the Sasquatch or the Bigfoot, eh? Then I would defer you to the snow macaque that lives in mountainous, snowy regions. And they're just little monkeys. They're not big, large, or what are reported to be big, large hominids. Roughly the size of baboon. Maybe it's a bit smaller, right? A macaque. But they live in snow. So, them little fellers can do it. The big guy can, It's just a thought. Yeah, right. So it's this big legendary name for a hamlet of not even a dozen people. It's very, very strange. Terry says, sorry, I got ahead of myself. Terry says, I'm a fan of the Sasquatch. Big fan. Yeah. Jabberjuro Joe asking, and you've been hunted your whole life, Frankie? Yeah. Well, I've been hunting almost my whole life, and I've been hunted my whole life. Sure, of course. And probably while I'm out hunting deer or elk or moose, I'm probably being watched by mountain lions, wolves, coyotes, not bears, because they'd be sawing logs in their cave, eh? They'd be like hunkering down for the winter there, bud. Orion, since no one wanted to stay there, supposedly. Yeah, like it's very weird. It's weird that it's this little town. They called it Orion. Like I said, I mean, I could have, again, I could have dug a little deeper as to why it's called Orion. But you'd think, the Wikipedia would have it. They have that, founded in whatever, named such and such because of so and so. I mean, we'll see that right here because let's have a quick look at Vulcan. So this is Vulcan, Alberta. So, live long and prosper there, eh? Vulcan, Alberta, not far from um, Orion. About an hour, maybe an hour from Red Rocks Coulee / Orion, Medicine Hat ish. Vulcan is a town in southern Alberta, Canada. Thanks, eh? That is surrounded by Vulcan County. It is on Highway 23, midway between the cities of Calgary and Lethbridge. The population of the town was 1,769 people in 2021, so a bit of a bigger town. Now known as the official Star Trek capital of Canada, Vulcan has a tourism building made to look like made to look like a landed space station, a statue of the original series Enterprise, and other Star Trek themed attractions. That's what I'm talking about. You capitalize on it. Our town was called Vulcan, eh? And then in the 60s, and then rebroadcast and reruns through the 70s. Yeah, the original series Star Trek, still the best, by the way. Captain Kirk, Mr. Spock, who was Vulcan. Bone Scotty. Lieutenant Uhura and her fine self. Chekhov, Sulu, the routine. And then, some movies in the 80s, some better than others. So Vulcan said, you know what, hey, let's attract some tourists to our town. I mean, they're already coming here and saying, oh, because of the Star Trek. So they set up a whole thing. So why Orion didn't do that about the whole Red Rocks Coulee, I'll have no idea. Anyway, the history, Vulcan was named by a surveyor for the Canadian Pacific Railway after the Roman god of fire, Vulcan. There you go. Some surveyor who worked for the railroad named it that. Why? Because it's hotter than the devil's dick in Vulcan in the summer. It's in the Badlands. It can get to be mid 40s Celsius, which is, I don't know, 100 and teens ish Fahrenheit. Originally, all the streets of Vulcan were named after gods and goddesses of the classical world, such as Juno, Mars, and Jupiter. So they just went all out with this whole naming the town Vulcan and then naming all the streets after gods and goddesses. Very unusual. In Alberta, by the way, this isn't anywhere near the Roman Empire. The community was incorporated as a village in 1912, then as a town in 1921. In July 1927, a major tornado destroyed many homes and the new curling rink in town. Come on, man. That's all these fine folks probably had to do out there was curling. Tornado was made famous when a photograph of it approaching Vulcan was used for the tornado article in Encyclopedia Britannica. Really? Oh, siren in the background, Terry. There it is. Oh, and you get a horn too. That's a fire truck there. Go get them, boys. Put out that fire. God bless you. Godspeed, boys. Godspeed. Speaking of fire, my smoke went out, eh? First newspaper to serve the area was the Vulcan Review, which began in 1912 and was published for 1 year. Then it went belly up, I guess, and the Vulcan Review was followed by the Vulcan Advocate in 1913. It's still being published today. The place was founded in December of 1912, and they already got a newspaper going that same year. They had a month to do it. Not even a month. Oh, no, it was incorporated as a village in 1912. Sorry. It wasn't founded then. Doesn't say when it was founded. All right. Sorry. Got it. I got carried away. My cat, Ensign Pavel Chekhov, says hello. Yes, Captain. Okay, this was interesting too. Vulcan once had 9 grain elevators, more than any other location west of Winnipeg. Winnipeg is a huge city. Wow, by Canadian standards, it's a pretty big city. But I've talked about Winnipeg many times here on the channel. It is now, today, in modern Canada land, still sort of a central transportation hub. Okay, stuff from the west comes into Winnipeg and then either goes points east, north, south. Stuff from the east hits Winnipeg and bing, 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 same thing. And I believe in the old world pre-reset, Winnipeg served that same role. It was an old world transportation and shipping hub. So for Winnipeg to have 9 grain elevators, sure, that makes sense. For them to have 12, 20 would make sense. But for Vulcan, a town of, 1,700 people today, 1,800 people today, to have back then 9 grain elevators, that's amazing. Those aren't what they're talking about. That picture, that's more of a silo. We'll get into the grain elevators. Anyways, making it the largest grain shipping point at that time. So why is Vulcan not a big, huge city or a good-sized town? Why isn't there 100,000 people or 60,000 people in Vulcan? Due to changing economics of the agricultural industry, the original elevators were taken down one by one. Today, Vulcan has only one of the prairie skyscrapers left that once could be seen miles away. Although not original, this last wooden elevator was built in the 80s. Oh, yippee. A British Commonwealth Air Training Plan Air Force Base, RCAF Station Vulcan, is located about 6 nautical miles, or 10 clicks, 6.5 miles southwest of the town during the Second World War. That's the thumbnail for this live stream, by the way, if you're wondering what that weird triangular symbol was for the thumbnail. That's this thing. The Commonwealth Air Training Plan, RCAF Station Vulcan. It's a little town in the middle of nowhere, has a Second World War Royal Canadian Air Force station. Okay. It's now operated as the Vulcan Kirkcaldy Aerodrome. And some of the old runways are still in use. There's a second airport called the Vulcan. Are you kidding me? Vulcan has 2 airports. It has a Royal Canadian Air Force airport and a town airport. That doesn't make any sense. Economy, mainly tourism and agriculture. Of course, wheat, canola, barley. There you go. Oil and gas employs many residents of Vulcan. So again, Vulcan should be bigger. I don't get it. Tourism. Here you go. Since 1990, Vulcan has hosted the annual Vulcan Tin Man Triathlon, which takes place at the beginning of June. This sprint distance triathlon attracts nearly 1,000 participants. Town's name has brought some attention. It has helped it to become a tourist attraction in Star Trek television and feature film series. The name of the home world, Mr. Spock, his fellow Vulcans. Yeah. Capitalizing on this coincidence, the town has built the Star Trek-themed tourist station, which provides tourist information, displays an extensive donated collection of Star Trek memorabilia. Fantastic for all you Trekkers out there. Trek Station offers unique photo opportunities, yada, yada, yada. And then there's the Enterprise. Different designation, though. So, you see, they were smart in Vulcan. They said, hey, just by this weird coinky dink, we are now our Downshire's the name of this pointy-eared feller on the TV. So yeah, why not, right? I mean, I would. Headley Man BC, howdy. Give a like, please. Yeah. Yes, thank you. Yeah, please, if you haven't already, consider giving a guy one of these. Just helps push me out into the algorithm a little bit. By the way, we did it. We did it, folks. Thank you. Thank you. We did it. Just passed 1,400 subscribers. Took us a while, but we did it. So thank you. Couldn't have done it without you. So let's just for giggles here look at Vulcan in terms of mythology. We're all very familiar with that green-blooded son of a gun on the boob tube there, the Star Trek. But this is Vulcan mythology. Vulcan is the god of fire, including the fire of volcanoes and deserts. Okay, so there you go. That makes sense too. They're out in Vulcan, and it's hotter than Satan's taint out here today. I'm going to name this place Vulcan. I mean, he could have named it Hades. I mean, he could have named it anything, but he did landed on Vulcan. These surveyors back in the Wild West cowboy root toot and shoot 'em up wild Indian days, they were certainly highly educated. They knew all about their Roman mythology. They knew all about their Greek gods and goddesses. Like, I'm just a simple fellow over here in Calgary, up in Canada land, but you know, if you were to take me out in the middle of nowhere to some hot desert and say, we want to build a town here, come up with a name for it, I'd be damned if I could, like, you know, put two and two together. Well, it's really hot and dry here, so let's name it after a Roman god of fire and volcanoes and deserts. What? You know, just name it like Heatsville or something. Sweat Town, Alberta. Hey, Morgan. Isabella Live 2.0 in the box. Vulcan, Manitoba, or Alberta, southeastern Alberta. Is there a Vulcan in Manitoba? Get out of here. Gotta be kidding me. Really? No. No. Okay. It freaked me out for a second. I was like, what? Mind blown. Mind blown. Oh, yeah, I tried that when I was a kid. I used to try that on my cousins. The Vulcan neck pinch thing. Yeah, it didn't work. Captain Kirk's judo chop to the back of the neck. That always worked on a fella, though. You know, Kirk's move was to punch a guy in the old bread basket there, right in the midsection, and when the guy doubled over, oof, then he'd give him the da on the back of the neck. Good old Bill Shatner. Captain James D. Kirk of the Starship Enterprise. So I want to jump back on this Bigfoot / giants thing for a second here. We've all seen it in the old world maps of the New World, right, here in North America. Up in Canada land, or back then, which was called British North America. 1700s, even 1600s, 1640 to 1700s. The old world maps in western and northwestern Canada was just blank, right? It would say parts unknown, or it'd say here be giants. Actually, was one other thing. And much like I mentioned that our Indigenous First Nations peoples here in Canada have stories within their culture of Sasquatch, Bigfoot, they also have stories of giants. And not just the West Coast Indigenous folks in terms of, Sasquatch or Bigfoot, but a lot of our Indigenous First Nations here in Canada have stories of giants. Some have stories of being friendly with these giants, and some having stories about actually warring, like full on war with these giants, because the giants were raiding and killing the First Nations peoples. And they're like, you know what? We've had enough of this bullshit from these big buggers. Let's just go out there and get them. And they got them in some cases. So I found an article here from a website called Texas Cryptid Hunter. I have no idea how legit or whatever this is, but this is from March of 2019. But they just touched on a couple of things that kind of wrap everything up nicely here in a nice package, because I think those red rocks in the Red Rock Coulee, I don't think that they're just rock bulbs that have formed from because a perfect sphere was a harder rock than the whatever surrounded the material that surrounded the soil, right? And through erosion of rain and wind and everything, it eroded all the soil and left this harder rock sphere sitting there. I'm not buying that for a second. To me, they look like something giants would have used. Jars, containers with lids, giant bocce balls for all a guy knows. I don't know. But anyways, this is that Texas Cryptid Hunter. So it talks about Native American lore and the giants of the Rockies. Well, that's where a fella lives, right here, the Rockies. Why is that doing that? Anyways, in the years since I started writing this blog, I've become an avid folklorist, yada, yada, yada. Myths and legends of the Native Americans have always fascinated me, and it's always interesting to see if any of these old tales could possibly tell us anything about cryptid animals. Going through my school library came a book titled Indian Legends from the Northern Rockies. So on their way to the Pacific Northwest, members of Lewis and Clark expedition ran into a group of Flathead Indians in the Bitterroot Valley of what is now western Montana. So there you go, the Rocky Mountains. Montana and Alberta share a border, by the way, and we share them same Rocky Mountains. The tribe was friendly to these white men, the first they had ever seen. Flathead shared not only their food with the explorers, but some of their folk tales involving giants they called oh boy, here we go. Brace yourselves, people. Frankie's fixing to butcher an Indigenous First Nations word here. Natliskelugtan. That's all you're getting. In their language meant killers of men, according to historian H.H. Turney High. This guy's name is H.H. Turney High. I don't believe you. Fully half of the Flathead stories deal with these giants, and easily 2/3 of them mention them. These giants were said to have amazing strength, as illustrated in the following Flathead tale. So a small hunting party came upon a giant asleep in the forest. They tied him with ropes of buffalo hair, sat upon his chest, and beat him until he wakened. Then he laughed thunderously, burst the ropes, and sent the men flying through the air as he rose to his feet. Seizing one of them by the ankle, he tossed the man across the Missoula River. Eesh. According to the legends of the Coeur d'Alene people of the northwest Idaho, Idaho shares a border with British Columbia and also share the Rocky Mountains. Giants were common on their lands at one time. They were described as having strong odor, that of burning horn. That's not a good smell. Their faces were black and they were as tall as a teepee. Giants would often approach a solitary teepee or lodge, but if several dwellings were grouped together, they were not so bold. The giants were said to dress in bear or other animal skins with the hair left on. They lived in caves and had a great liking for fish, so much so that according to the old stories, these giants often stole fish out of the Coeur d'Alene traps. Other than the curious examination of solitary teepees or lodges and the occasional theft of fish from the Indian traps, the giants were said not to bother people much. The Kootenays, they're people that were in British Columbia. According to Fur Trader, more sirens. You'd think a guy would live in Detroit. Nope, I'm living in Calgary. Yep. Yeah. Well, yeah, the Canadian giants always have a purple giraffe and a rooster stuffed in a sack nailed to the wall. Those sirens might be follow up to that fire engine we heard go by earlier. The Kootenays' numbers fell precipitously due to their nearly continuous warfare with the Blackfeet over the right to hunt the buffalo grounds immediately east of them across the Rockies. Presently, the Kootenays people live in northern Idaho, northwest of Montana, and southern British Columbia. Their mythology is very similar to other tribes in the area that includes accounts of giants. Tales of giants from the mythology of other tribes, such as the Assiniboines, Lemhi Shoshones, can be found in the book too. So these are all accounts given in this book. So Assiniboine are what in the United States are called Plains Indians, right? Here in the prairies, we had very similar. Some of our indigenous First Nations were slightly more nomadic in terms of following the bison, right? The great buffalo, Tatanka. And supplemented that with some seasonal farming and, of course, hunting of other wild game such as deer and elk. We also have antelope, North American antelope here in the prairies. So, tales of giants from our indigenous First Nations brethren from what is now modern-day Saskatchewan, Alberta, British Columbia, here up in Canada land, as well as Montana and Idaho, and which then I would also imagine Washington. And that's just in this, one article from this one book. So I found that very interesting. I think there's something that isn't quite right with this whole Red Rocks Coulee thing, which is, I think they're basically letting it be a tourist thing, because there's too many of them out there scattered around for them to just pick them up and take them away. People would notice it's too late now, kind of. So they are keeping it as a tourist attraction, but it's not hyped up like other parts of the Badlands here in Alberta, like in Medicine Hat or just outside of Medicine Hat, had smashed in Buffalo Jump, which was an indigenous bison hunting area. That is advertised all over the place, up the wazoo. Right, Drumheller, just a little bit northeast of where I live here in the Badlands, where all the dead dinosaurs are, up in the big Royal Tyrrell Dinosaur Museum up there. They'll push that in your face. But these red rocks, I think, are a little bit tougher to explain. Because even though they give us scientific explanation that, it's from erosion, when you go out there and you look at them, or when you look at the pictures that we're going to look at here in a bit, it's like, I don't think so. There's something else going on. So maybe something used by giants, considering giants spotted all over the area. And perhaps these giants were chased out by some indigenous First Nations, Canadian Indian and / American Indians, right? Because borders arbitrary, especially back then, 16, 17, 1800s. Parts of Canada were in the U.S., parts of the U.S. were up in Canada, and now it's, the border's been fairly steady for a while now, but back then there was a lot of jinky stuff going on. You had the Louisiana territories, you had the Oregon territories, you had the Northwest territories, you had Assiniboine. It was crazy up here. You had Rupert's Land, you had Upper Canada, Lower Canada, New France. It was crazy. Hi, Danielle. Danielle in the box. Good to see you. Modoc. Greetings, everyone from McDermott. Howdy. Welcome. Thanks for shooting in. By the way, once again, just to mention to all of you, again, thanks for shooting in, but links for everything below, all the Wikipedia articles and all that sort of thing, as well as the one we just looked at about the tales of giants amongst Indigenous First Nations peoples. So where are we at here? Well, we just crossed the hour mark. So I think what I'll do is a mid-show break, as per usual here, and I'm going to give you a sneak peek at your midweek coming up for this coming Wednesday. Your vintage footage. It's about 4 minutes-ish long. And then when we come back, then we'll look at those photomographs. What do you think? Sound good? Good. All right. Let's see here. Let me get it queued up. And then we'll be right back. This is from 1925, Northern Ontario in the winter. Give you a little bit of an idea of what frozen transportation was like in the 1920s winter in Northern Canada. It's about 5 minutes long, and then I'll be back right after that. So stick around, enjoy the break, and I'll be back in a sec. Cheers.
Faces and places in motion become all the same. Wide open spaces and cities without any name. People who gamble in search of their quest. Jokers and aces all put to the test. Winners and losers all travel the highway of dreams. Ladies all painted in shades of a haunting despair. Men who are tainted by life that appears so unfair. Here comes a man in his new Cadillac. Women and wine and a pool in the back. Winners and losers all travel the highway of dreams. Deserts of darkness and rivers of cold. Mountains we all have to climb. Further ahead there's a fortune untold. It can't be reached in a matter of time.
All right, that's enough of that nonsense. We're back. Welcome back. Once again, thank you very much for shooting in and joining a guy here. New West Reset Live, episode 51. Tonight we're looking at Vulcans, Red Rocks, and Orion. Just some really weird stuff in southeastern Alberta. So we looked at some of the official story of the hamlet of Orion. 11 people live in that place. Wow. And the Red Rocks coulee nearby with these weird rocks. We're going to have a closer look at that here in a second. As well as the town of Vulcan, which is also not too far away. I think what a guy's going to do is just quickly open up the goggle machine here and look at the map. Because I've got some stuff here that I've kind of saved just so we can get another sort of idea of who, what, where, and when we're talking about, you know? Because Canada-Nadia is pretty big there, eh? Like, Canada-Nadia is pretty big. So I'm going to give you an idea of where we're looking at here. So let me just share this up. Boom. Hello. And once again, links for everything in the description box below. 17 of you watching on the HooTubes and on the Rumble. Thank you very much. Links for those down below as well. Howdy, howdy to everybody in the box. Did Viking horses pull boats? Could be. Normal horses pulled streetcar trolley trams. So you never know. Yeah, that was a great video. Yeah, they definitely didn't need no stinking roads. Yeah, one guy bailed, actually. I actually trimmed the footage a little bit, but there was one guy, he just totally bailed. But then the other guy with the rope, he actually slung it around that sawed-off tree trunk that was sitting there. And that dog sleigh just stopped on a dime. You know, that would have actually, normally a maggot brother, I would say that would have been a surefire bet. Lock it and put it in your pocket and take it straight to the bank. Warranty, guarantee. But yeah, fooled you on this one. No train. No train on this one. No trains, just a blind man and some dogs. That's right. Jeff Healey and the Jeff Healey Band providing the music for that one. You're always a great bunch. I'm so lucky to have a great bunch like you here on the channel. Great sense of humor. Appreciate it. So here's where we're looking. Canada-Nadia land, and here's Purdy, Alberta. So we're looking in southern and southeastern Alberta. So this is Red Rocks, Coulee, and Orion. Get out of there. Orion's right here. Here, let's just go down and have there's Orion. There it is in its glory. Shall we drop the man down? Oh, it'll even let us too. Sometimes these little hamlets are so small. They're like, no, we didn't even bother going in and have a look. So this was the old store, I think, or something. But yeah, you know. The heck's the name of this street? Enopian Street? What in blazes does that mean? Get out of there. Anyway, so there's Orion. Red Rock Coulees are right in here. What the hell happened over here? What? Wow, this area got the hell beat out of it or something. I mean, they've parceled off the land. It's farmland, right? I know from the road it looks just like grasslands, but from up here it looks like it's been bombarded with giant red boulders. I don't know. Maybe. Anyway, let's take a quick look at Vulcan here, and then we'll look at some pictures. So Vulcan's not that far away. It's just right here. So Vulcan is at least, it's 1,800 people. So, I mean, it's still a pretty small little town. There's the Vulcan airport. Why this little town needs an airport, I don't know. Considering that Royal Canadian Air Force training World War II historical base thing is right here. Look at this weird looking thing out in the middle of the bald ass prairies. There he is. Bernie in the box. Howdy, howdy. Yeah, that's right. His ears were ringing. We were talking about you earlier. And I was saying that this kicked off. This is all kicked off from the Red Rocks coulees when you were out looking around down there. So we're looking at Red Rocks. We're looking at Orion. And we're looking at Vulcan. Because Vulcan's weird too. But yeah, man, something big went down over here. I mean, this is weird. Where is it now? Yeah, here. It's odd, right? I mean, we see some odd stuff here in this line of research, but that's just weird. They almost all of them look like a small circular hump with a divot in it. So I don't even know. Don't even know, man. Guess is as good as mine. Anyways, let's look at some pictures. See what kind of crazy shenanigans are going on around here. So yeah, we'll start in Vulcan with the photos. That's just the way the file is set up here. Because both Vulcan and Orion should be larger. And Vulcan's trying, right? The whole Star Trek thing, they're trying. But for it being a major hub of grain transportation, and at one time having 9 grain elevators, the most in Canada west of Winnipeg. I mean, this place should be, like I said, 60,000 people, 100,000 people. Anyway, most of the photos we're going to be looking at here are around 1920-ish, some a little prior to and some slightly after. Let's have a looky-loo here. Boom. This is basically Main Street, Vulcan. So again, small town, right? So what you would expect from a small prairie town, right? Out in the scrub, in the Badlands, a couple of 2- and 3-story wooden structures. Yeah, okay, they got a pretty good size hotel. Why these little towns have hotels, I'll never know. But anyway, but again, it's a tiny little town, but you can see from the shadows on the other side of the street, there's buildings. So you got these big, wide streets. But look how small the horses and buggies and this little jalopy car are. They don't need. It's almost like they're anticipating that soon enough we're going to have 2 lanes going this way and 2 more lanes coming that way. I don't know. This always boggled my mind. What's going on here? By the way, wonder what that is. Oh, that's absolutely correct. Divots let the earth spin faster, like a golf ball, Dimples. Yes, exactly. Yeah, something was processed, dumped on. Look, who knows, man? It's the landscape there is weird. This is also weird. There's another one here too. So even at this early time in this little place, potential buried mudflood windows. Anyway, moving on here. So here's those grain elevators they're talking about. So it's not like a silo. It's like a large wooden structure. Serves the same purpose. Pile up the grain in here, and then they shoot it into the grain cars for the train. The railroad track, you can barely see, is back here, I think. By the way, all this tech, all this, wood frame as it may be, there's machinery inside here that pushes the grain up and so on and so forth. Augers and whatnot. I don't know. I'm not a farmer, but you catch my drift. But still this, horse and wagon tech. There's a little later on here, right in the town, there's a Vulcan service station. Not sure why it needs this massive smokestack so large that they've got a ladder on it. Are they burning tires in this place? Maybe, I don't know. Not sure what these are either. If you know in the chat or in the comments, if you're watching this after the fact, let me know in the comments. Some tire shop, but I don't know if they're burning old tires or what, but that's a massive smokestack for this little joint. Shot from a different angle, kind of that main street. That's that Vulcan Hotel again. You can see a couple of big buildings here, but big, huge, wide streets, big enough to have you a parade, an old-timey Wild West parade. This is the Vulcan Vulcan Parade Imperial Hotel. Imperial Hotel, okay. These flags here are Union Jack flags, so we don't even have the Canadian flag yet. Got the British flag. I don't know what kind of parade this is. It's probably Odd Fellows or something like that. Maybe them dang Masons, maybe. I think I'm seeing some. I don't know. There's women and kids in the parade, though, so I don't know. Shriners? No, don't see the little funny hats. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, people. Bird's eye view of Vulcan. Bird's eye view taken from what? There's the hotel there. What is this bird's eye view? Not quite bird's eye view, more like 38-degree angle view. Is it from on top of one of the grain elevators? I mean, it could be. But you can see, for this massive grain transportation hub, it's just this little town. A couple of impressive buildings, but I mean, it's, here's another shot of those beautiful grain elevators. Right here, grain elevators, Vulcan, Alberta. It's a dinosaur. It's a dinosaur eye view. Yeah, vulcanized rubber, right? Vulcan repair kits. Vulcan. It would stand to reason that there'd be a pretty decent tire shop at Vulcan that vulcanized rubber. After the big storm of October 3rd, 4th, and 5th. What year? I don't know. It doesn't say. But people have just decided I'm going to take my horses and just put a sleigh on, attach a sleigh. I'm not seeing a car. I'm seeing horses, mules, and sleighs. Sleds, if you will. Not fun. Not fun getting around. So this is why we say, especially like old world exploration, right? Chris and I always say on our show, the Knuckleheads, when they give you a 2-year build time on some big building and it's in Canada and it's in a place that gets, harsh winters, like the old Winnipeg City Hall, and they say, oh, it was built in 2.5 years. You got to cut that construction time in half. Or actually double it. But you know what I mean? Like if they're saying it, because it cut the construction year in half. Because you got winter and spring, it's all muddy. Like, look at this. You got like 2 feet of snow here. And this is in southern Alberta where they don't get as much snow as Winnipeg does. So when they say something was built in 2 years in Winnipeg, you got to think, well, yeah, but for half the time out of those 2 years, there wasn't much construction going on until, let's say, the outer portion of the building was almost complete or complete enough where guys can get in and start doing interior work. Then as you progress, things speed up a little bit. But initially, when you're digging down to pour a foundation or whatever, you got about 6 months to get her done. Then you got to shut it down because it's going to be cold and icy and windy. And then for about a month, it's going to be muddy when all that snow and ice melts. And it's because of this kind of shenanigans. This is in front of, this is the curling club. That's right, the Vulcan Curling Club. Here's their trophy. They're posing in front of the bank because I think the bank was the sponsor for the curling club, like one of the supporters of the club. Paid for the brooms, maybe? I don't know, because I don't see fancy uniforms. Another winter shot. Look at this snow. Look at these ruts from the, I don't know, carts, buggies, whatever. What are you smirking at in the cold? Go inside, fool. Yeah, see, now here you got like late winter, early spring. Horses and oxen and mules pulling stuff on skids or sleighs. See, that's a sleigh or a sled on skids. Just a muddy mess. Nice little train station, though, in Vulcan. There's the green elevators in the background. Kind of an odd and off-putting photograph, is it not? All right, I'll move on. So the Alberta Wheat Pool. Vulcan, Alberta. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, possibly 9. Yeah, that is impressive. This is why I say that Vulcan should have, today, to this day, should have 60,000 people, which isn't big, but it's big for some little, prairie agricultural city. Here's a shot of that famous Vulcan tornado that made it into Encyclopedia Britannica, supposedly. Some guy on his horse and buggy here saw it coming and had the presence of mind to risk his life to take one of those old-timey cameras that take about 2.5 to 4 minutes, depending on how you set your aperture and whatnot to take a photo. Here's another shot of that Royal Canadian Air Force base. It's just weird looking, man. Weird. These, I guess, are hangars. Yeah, because there's planes there. Some strange. These barracks, maybe? Very weird. Okay, so here's Orion. Not much going on in Orion. Right where the Red Rock Coulee is. Orion at one time had some impressive grain elevators. Looky here. And a coal company. It looks like there was more going on in Orion back in this time, 1920s-ish, give or take, than in modern day when we dropped down and looked in Orion. It's Orion Canadian Pacific Railroad Tracks Station and Freight Shed. Something and white store shows and more of the main street above that. Okay, 1930s. So the general store, I guess, here. It's kind of a shitty picture. Sorry, it's all pickleated. I think it's a photograph of a photograph, which is why. Looking south, Orion. Big, wide avenues. And there's some old 20s jalopy. Why they felt they needed these wide streets and avenues, I'll never know. Okay, so here now we're getting into the meat and taters, the nitty gritty. Yeah, cameras can't catch a damn construction photo, but they can catch a tornado. Exactly. Horse and buggy era taken photograph as well. Red Rock Coulee has a diversity of features from bare, arid slopes to native grasslands and plateau. Plateau is a hill with the top cut off, basically. Mesa, like a mesa. The main feature is a large area of exposed bear paw shale, out of which appears dozens of sandstone concretions. There we go again. These spheroids range in size from 1.5 to 2.5 meters in diameter, so about 5-ish, 6 feet-ish, and exposed to varying degrees from the soft bedrock. So some are poking out and some are fully exposed. These concretions were formed in the very sediments upon which they sit. Oh, how so? The process by which concretions are formed leaves them harder and more resistant. Okay, but how are they formed? What is said process that you speak of? Erosional forces, then the surrounding material, some letters missing. Then the parent material erodes. The spheres are left exposed, and then they in turn begin to erode. All right. Well, let's have a look at this nonsense. So this one time was just formed naturally under the ground. And then wind and rain and snow and thousands and thousands of years. And then this is just left there because the ground eroded away. What's this up here? Guy wonders. Okay, anyway, it's pretty interesting. Yeah, that's right. If it's rocks, if it's big rocks or boulders in the prairies, it's got to have something to do with the buffalo, right? That's kind of a semi-private joke between Vinny and myself. When we went to Heritage Park here in Calgary, they had a setup of a replica of an old Hudson's Bay Trading Company fort, and outside was a buffalo rubbing stone that was clear and smooth and brilliant as glass, as the most highly polished marble, but worn down to a small boulder from a much larger boulder. From the buffalo were itchy from shedding their winter coat and molting their fur or whatever, so they would rub against it. And over thousands of years and hundreds of buffalo coming to rub on these stones, they'd become highly polished. Yes, itchy buffalo backs. So you can see they're scattered everywheres in here, different sizes, different states of uh, decay, if you will. Some looking mighty hollow and smashed open. And then some very unusual mounds here. This is, what they call a plateau. It's like a small mesa. Potentially an earthwork here coming up to maybe what was another, I think, and I think Bernie also proposed this idea that these are either buried structures or more maybe even more likely, because it's the Badlands, cooked out structures. You can see there's a hollow in here or a void and something here maybe. Now, whether these were like the Mississippian people's pyramids or something similar perhaps to Mesoamerican, like Aztec pyramids, I don't know. I'm spitballing. It's conjecture on my part. I could definitely see how this could be a structure, and this sort of like a ramp or a staircase even would be maybe stairs going up to another platform or what they're calling a plateau. And obviously whoever took this photograph is standing on something like this as well. It's another angle of another one of these. You can see these things are very unusual looking. And they're quite large. I mean, they're the size of I don't know, what would you say? Two of these together are like a Prius. One of those little stupid Prius cars. Look at this thing. Like, this looks tooled to me. Like potter's wheel spin maybe, or something, or on a lathe. It's turned on a lathe, like you see woodworking done with, maybe. I don't know. You can see the Badlands are just totally cooked out, right? Just like when we looked up at Drumheller here on the show a few months back. I mean, if this doesn't look like a giant jar with a lid on it, a giant version of Nana's cookie jar. Keep your grubby paws out of Nana's cookie jar before dinner. You can see all back in here just what they call plateaus, because it's a hill and then it's flat, which is also very unusual for here in the prairies and in southern Alberta, because the foothills that lead up to the Rocky Mountains to the west of where I am are supposed to be rolling, easy sloping, rounded foothills, which the majority of them are. But here in the Badlands, for whatever reason, they're like mesas or plateaus. See, look at this. So this gives you an idea of the size of some of these. Mind you, this is quite a bit in the foreground, but I mean, some of these things are huge. Really weird. Yeah, exactly, Vinny. Exactly. Yeah, it looks like it has layers coming off, right? In some cases. Could be a tool to use to dig the hole and pour something in there. Like, who knows? Hat for columns. Maybe. They seem to be pretty round, though. You know? Anyway, they're just, these things are really unusual. I mean, this almost perfect spheroid, as they call it. Just, formed by nature, formed in this ground. And as the ground eroded away, boop, oh, there it is. Here's one that has fallen over and then snapped off. Now, I know someone would say, oh, that's a tree, giant ancient tree. But don't forget now, this was a sphere. It was what they're calling a stone ball, a spheroid. So while to me, yeah, sure, it does look like the rings in a tree, keep in mind that these are like this, a sphere, spheroids. You see, they're all kind of this same bulbous shape, unless they've fallen over and been broken or been vandalized, or maybe the powers who should not be, some of their cronies and clowns tried to remove them. I don't know. Just a very curious set of objects, these red rocks at Red Rock Coulee are. These spheroids. Very, very curious indeed. Right in this area, parts unknown. Here be giants and whatnot. I cannot find a clear enough photo of this, no matter how hard a guy tries, so that I can really zoom in tight and read some of this text. I know this says high mountains here, where it says, parts unknown here. Even though they know this is the Mozkemlik country, and they know that there's many villages in here, but this is parts unknown, apparently. This is basically, Alberta, British Columbia, Saskatchewan. So these high mountains that they talk about here, high mountains, it's, the Rocky Mountains that come down. A lot of people figure this is the Great Salt Lake in Utah. That kind of makes sense. But anyways, it's all in this area where it's parts unknown that these indigenous people talking about giants, and it's right in this area, those red rocks, the Red Rock Coulee. It's just in the same area we find these little towns that should be much bigger than they are, but look blasted out for some reason. And they're named after Roman gods like Orion and Vulcan. Like, what in the Sam hell is going on? It just, say what? Just say what? I don't know. It's nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Yeah, right from the horse's mouth. Bernie right there say, yeah, Red Rock Coulee is a wild place. Yeah, and Bernie's got a lot of content on his channel from last summer when he was out there. Medicine Hat, Head Smashed in Buffalo Jump, Red Rock Coulees, a bunch of other places out there. Yeah, the concentric circles are weird. The different colors too. Each concentric circle or ring inside is a different color. Some are darker or lighter shades, I should say, of the same color. They're reddish, but darker or lighter shades of red or more orangey red. Team Heat, how's you going there, eh, bud? Oh, hey. So yeah, just a really, really unusual place, very interesting place, very unique place, even by Alberta standards. Because again, I'm going to pull it up here on the old goggle maps for you real quick again, just as a reminder that, Alberta's pretty. It's a beautiful province, pretty Alberta. But it's weird because the Badlands are very, very unusual, very strange. Something different happened in the Badlands of Alberta than everywhere else in Alberta. A different type of catastrophic event, and I think at a different time period. So again, if we look at the Canada land here, and we have Alberta right here. This used to be Assiniboia, by the way. So when they say those Assiniboine First Nations, Native Canadian Indians, and American Indians, it was all in here. Like Fort Peck Indian Reservation, and then all of this in here. So you still have the Assiniboine River and all that. But right in here, and then basically shooting kind of diagonally from sort of south central Alberta to southeastern Alberta. It's just cooked out, basically from Drumheller here, or maybe a little more like Stettler. Right down, this is all called the Badlands. And it's all like, much like, Utah. It's that arid desert that gets cold in the winter. Not much grows, so they have to irrigate the hell out of it. And it just looks blasted out, cooked out, something. Just crazy as all hell down here. And of course, that's where they're finding all them there dead dinosaurs, is all in through here. Like Dinosaur Provincial Park is down here somewhere. And then, of course, as I mentioned, Drumheller with the big museum up there. But yeah, this whole Badlands is completely different than everywhere else in Alberta. Everywhere else, you get sort of prairies, and then you get into the rolling hills, and then the mountains. Then up north, you have a little bit of sort of tundra. Then, of course, you have the Eye of Alberta. That's a registered trademark of New West Reset, not to be copied without express written consent. You have the Eye of Alberta up here in northern Alberta, which is like a big muskeg, I think, or something. I don't know. I'm trying to find out what this is and what caused it. Some geologist is going to tell me that it was once a big inland lake or something, or it's a giant crater, or it's left over from the glaciers, or I don't know. But anyways, that's kind of unique and weird. But otherwise, like, Alberta is pretty, there's some forested areas, there's some prairies, there's some farms, and then you get the Badlands, bam, right through here. It's just so weird, so different. I mean, and it extends into Saskatchewan, of course, but just very, very odd, very unusual. Oh, thanks, Bernie. Well, you're the expert at this area anyway, so you've actually been there, done that. I actually haven't been out there yet. I do want to go out there, though. I mean, I've been to Lethbridge and I've been to Medicine Hat, but I've never done any boots on the ground of the area. And to be honest, I had never heard of Red Rock Coulee until you went there this past summer, like last year. I mean, I've heard of Big Rock and, a bunch of other weird stuff in Alberta. And I was familiar with Vulcan, of course, and some of the other little towns with weird names around there, like Champion and Carbon. Like, who names this little town of 100 people Champion? Champion of what? No offense to anybody from Champion. I actually knew a guy. I used to work with a guy that moved to Calgary, and he was from Champion. I'm like, really? Wow. And he was Asian. And of course, he said, yeah, we were the only Chinese family there. He was Chinese Asian, right? His parents, I think his grandparents emigrated. I guess the story is his granddad worked on the railroad as it came through the prairies or something. Anyways, they settled in Carbon. So yeah, he was pretty anxious to move out of Carbon, Alberta. He ended up moving to the city of Calgary. So I said, oh, do your parents still live there? I said, yeah. I said, oh, yeah, are they retired? He said, no, they own a he said they own a Chinese restaurant. I'm like, well, there you go. So if you're ever in Champion, Alberta, The Chinese food's pretty good, I hear, which is so strange. But anyway, but I had never heard of, Red Rocks. Orion, I think, rang a bell. I was like, yeah, I think that rings a bell just because it's so strange. But I'm just shocked that, more touristy accommodations haven't sprung up close to that Red Rock Coulee. I mean, aside from having to stay in the Hat, right, in Medicine Hat. I would have thought Orion would be perfect. They could even do they could double dip on the tourism. They could say, hey, come see the ghost town, the prairie ghost town. And then also let's go look at some giant red rocks. But I don't know. Maybe it's me. Anyway, with that said, I think I'm getting ready to wind it down here. We're coming up on the top of the hour, creeping up on 9 p.m. local time. Again, a little bit of a later show tonight than usual. I usually go up about 5 o'clock my time, Mountain Time. But I had to work till 6. So a guy raced home like a mad fool, ducking and dodging and running and shucking and jiving through traffic, jaywalking, running the light. So I could get in here and get going at least for 7 o'clock. So I know it's quite a bit later for a lot of you. It's quite moved on into the wee hours. So if so, thank you very much. I really appreciate you sticking with me through the late hours. And thanks to all of you for all of your support. Those of you that are going to tune in and watch this after the fact, I really appreciate all of you and your support and watching these crazy shows as well. And they remain up on the BitChute, and my live streams also remain up on the Hootubes. So there you go. I think that is going to seal the deal here tonight for Frankie at New West Reset and New West Reset Live, episode 51, Vulcans, Red Rocks, and Orion. Just really weird stuff, man, in Southern Alberta. So links for everything, once again, below. If you want to look at all the Wikipedia stuff about this and maybe take a deeper dive into it. Also, that Texas Cryptid Hunter article on that blog. Link for that in the description as well. And the Google Maps created by... Howdy, Cat. Welcome. Created by Cousin Vinny. And of course, as mentioned, Rumble, BitChute, MeWe, and a guy's Gmail. So you can reach a fella if you've got any ideas for the show. Again, I try to keep it Canadian content, right? Because, hey, I'm Canadian, eh? There, buddy? What do you expect there, eh? But not necessarily. I'm not that rigid. As Canadians, we're polite. So, I'll oblige folks once in a blue moon. And as per usual, coming up this Sunday, Boots on the Ground. Wednesday, your vintage footage video, which you got a sneak peek of here tonight. Some dog sleds up in the northern Ontario in the winter of 1925. Brass monkey weather, enough to freeze your bippy, whatever a bippy is. And then we'll see you live here once again next Friday. Back regular scheduled time, I think, 5 o'clock p.m. Mountain Time next Friday. So thanks again to Cousin Vinny for all the hard work with that Goggle Maps New West Reset location map. He's actually updated it now to have the out-of-town locations. He was saying the one in Didsbury because my dad was driving and I was hanging out the window filming. Dad, that building there, look, the mudflood windows. So he'd kind of pull over a bit, but he couldn't because there's cars parked there and there's traffic, right? So we were zipping around, going around and around. Anyways, Cousin Vinny did a great job on that. And of course, I'm Frankie Fingers. So what you're saying is Frankie Fingers is New West Reset? Frankie Fingers is New West Reset. I don't understand. Okay, I've been trying to tell you. Frankie Fingers is New West Reset. New West Reset is Frankie Fingers. So it's the same guy. Same guy.
Yes, it's the same guy, Mutt. What do you think? I've been trying to tell you. Frankie Fingers, New West Reset. Frankie Fingers, New West Reset. Okay?
All right, I got it. Jeez.
So now you know what I'm talking about with the whole New West Reset thing.
No.
What?
No.
What I said about Frankie Fingers.
Oh.
That Frankie
Oh,
Fingers
yeah.
and New West Reset are the same.
Wait, what?
Oh yeah, she don't stand no cheating. She don't stand none of that.
Oh, we're just having fun here. We like to have a good time.
So Tommy, where have you been, huh? I've been watching New West Reset. Huh? Well, you know, it's New West Reset. It's this thing on YouTube. He goes around, he does his boots on the ground thing. They'll tell you.
Say you care.
All right, that's enough clowning. So I think that's going to seal the deal. Once again, thank you very much for joining me here tonight. As always, appreciate it. And yes, that's an excellent point. Anything Sam Cooke is good. Come on, Sam Cooke. Got the voice, the gift. The good Lord tickled him in the throat to give him that magical voice. I don't know. That doesn't make sense. I don't know what I'm talking about. That's my cue to get out of here. All right. Until next one. Thanks a lot, everybody. Take care, and we'll see you again soon. All right. Cheers.
It's a mystery. It's a mystery wrapped in a riddle inside an enigma.